Andrew, good to go? Good evening, everyone. We'll call our meeting of the Halifax and West Community Council to order. My name's Janet Steele. I'm the chair this evening, and our vice chair is Virginia Hinch. I'd like to offer our land acknowledgement that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Moving on now to the approval of the minutes. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuddle, and seconded by Councillor Morse. Are there any errors or omissions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. With respect to the order of business and approval of additions and deletions, I'll ask the clerk if there are any additions or deletions to the agenda.
Chair Steele, there are no additions or deletions for this agenda. However, I'd like to request that item 10.1.2, Plan App 2024-00735, rezoning of lands at 1246 Ketch Harbor Road, PID 00391169 Ketch Harbor, be considered prior to item 10.1.1.
Okay, thank you, clerk. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuddle, and seconded by Councillor Morse. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuddle. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has carried. We don't have any business arising out of the minutes. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare as a result of an item on today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, moving along. We don't have any motions of reconsideration or of rescission or of deferred business or table matters. So we're now at the public hearings section of the agenda. And we've already requested that the order of the agenda be moved. So we are hearing 10.1.2, Ketch Harbor first. So I will move to that item and thank everyone for joining us today for a public hearing. The process will be, we'll start with a staff presentation and questions of clarification from members of Community Council. The public hearing will open and the applicant will be given an opportunity to present. After that, we'll move to the public hearing speakers. Speakers can participate in person, or if pre-registered by the deadline, you had the option to participate using Zoom. There is no deadline to speak in person as long as you are present in the chamber when I call for speakers. Clerk, can you confirm if any correspondence has been received for this public hearing by the 3 p.m. deadline today?
Yes, Chair Steele, I can confirm that correspondence was received and circulated for item 10.1.2.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Clerk. So I will now ask for the staff presentation, and I believe Craig Warnell will be presenting.
Good evening, Community Council. My name is Craig Warnell, and I'm a Planner 2 with the Urban Enabled Applications Group here at HRM. Tonight's presentation is a public hearing presentation for Planning Application 2024-00735, which is a rezoning at 1246 Ketch Harbor Road in Ketch Harbor. So our applicant this evening for this application is Sightline Planning and Approvals. Again, our location is at 1246 Ketch Harbor Road in Ketch Harbor. And as shown here in the photo on the right, we're looking at rezoning the larger PID from P5, which is the Special Facility Zone, to R6, which we call the Rural Residential Zone, and the C2 General Business Zone to allow for future residential development. So again, our application is a rezoning application.
Excuse me, could we get the volume put up a little bit?
Hello. Okay. Just to provide a bit of site context for the application, we've got a couple photos here. So on the left, we're looking at our site boundary in red up against Ketch Harbor Road. We're kind of in the middle between Ketch Harbor Basin and Sambro Basin. The photo on the right, again, looking at a bit more of the site boundaries in red up against that Ketch Harbor Road with some single unit residential development across the street. I'm looking at our neighborhood. Our site again, shown here with a red star in particular. So again, we're located between Ketch Harbor and Sambro. Ketch Harbor, which is what I would consider maybe a small, experienced fishing community, was similar to many others settled along our Granite Coast. And as well, if we go down the road a little bit farther, arguably a little bit farther south, we would make it to Sambro. And Sambro Harbor takes on more of a traditional kind of modern fishing community with uses typical of modern day commercial fishing. We've got a site photo here. This is showing the subject property in the vacant telecommunications facility on the hill. This is the only structure on the property. And the intent here is to reuse this existing building moving forward to accommodate residential and or possible commercial uses. So getting right into our planning and policy overview. At HRM, we generally consider a few separate documents when moving through a planning application. First of which is our regional plan and subdivision bylaws. These generally guide where the population growth and investment of services like transit and pipe water occur and should occur. More aptly used in our department is our community plans, like our municipal planning strategies. So these outline the where, the how, and the what types of development kind of may occur on site. And these documents at times do allow specific uses outside the realm of our land use bylaws, but only after community consultation and council approval. Lastly, our land use bylaws, so we're getting right down to the granular lot level. These specify what can be approved without going through council's approval or seeking community feedback from the public. We generally consider this our as-of-right process at HRM. So just a full breakdown of what our zoning applications look like as far as process. So after we receive a complete application, we send that out for what we call a staff review. So we send this out for internal and external agencies to give us feedback on the applications. After that, we compile all of our information. Generally, we go back to the applicant if required, and then we go out for public engagement. This gives us just the opportunity to contact people in the community and hear back. After that, we compile our staff report. And then we send it off to you fine folks for our first reading, and then we move forward about a month later for our public hearing, after which would be a 14-day appeal period. So back to our site. The property is not on municipal water or sewer. So that means that any future development would rely on private well and septic. The site is currently zoned P5, which is intended for community facility uses, not residential. So our broader policy designation here is the Rural A, which is an area that can support rural residential and small-scale commercial uses. And again, there's also an existing building on site, which is a vacant telecommunications facility. And our policies this evening to be considered would be RA2, RA4, and to a further extent, our IM10. So moving on to our enabling policies. RA2, again, is what we would call an enabling policy. This allows council to consider a rural residential zoning in this area. So it asks council to consider, or to council rather, to look at whether low-density residential uses like single and two-unit homes and small home-based activities fit that rural character and could be supported on site. RA4 is our enabling policy that allows us to consider our general business zoning. It allows council to look at small-scale, rural, compatible commercial uses, so things like local shops, offices, and services, and determine whether those are appropriate for this property and our surrounding community. And lastly, our implementation policy. So after consideration of both of those enabling policies, we need to look at policy IM10. This ensures that the proposal is in conformity with the larger intent of the plan, being the municipal planning strategy, and that the proposal is not premature with regard to the possibility of site servicing, and that controls are put in place, in this case through zoning, looking to reduce any conflict with regard to land use and suitability on site. So jumping into our proposal, tonight council is being asked to consider rezoning at 1246 Ketch Harbor Road from the P5 Community Facility Zone to the R6 Residential Zone and the C2 General Business Zone under the Planning District 5 Land Use Bylaw. This change would enable the property owner to pursue development on 5 new lots through our subdivision process. The applicant has indicated an intention to develop residential units on these new lots. However, it's important to emphasize that the rezoning of the land to R6 and C2 would permit any uses allowed in those zones. The R6 allows low-density residential uses such as single and two-unit dwellings, home-based businesses, and certain recreational uses, while that C2 zone enables a range of general commercial uses as well as our low-density residential. So if council approves rezoning, each of the proposed lots could then be developed in accordance with the permitted uses and requirements of that R6 and C2 zone. And again, this is provided that all applicable land use bylaw standards are met prior to subdivision approval and the issuance of building permits. So some of those key aspects of our rezoning. So on the slide, you can see the applicant's preliminary concept subdivision plan of the property. This is stating that the property could be subdivided into 5 lots after the rezoning. I'll note again that tonight's application is not about approving the subdivision. Council is only being asked to consider the rezoning from the P5 to the R6 and C2 zones. So should the rezoning be approved, the owners would still need to go through a separate subdivision process, and any future development would have to meet the requirements of that R6 and C2 zone. Since the application was originally submitted, the proposed lot layout has certainly been revised. The applicant has indicated that based on further site evaluation, the updated layout better respects the wet areas identified on the preliminary plan survey. And I'm sure you're all wondering, but these are the permitted uses in the R6 rural residential zone and the C2 general business zone. So that R6 zone supports low density residential development, which includes single unit and 2-unit dwellings. This could contain up to 4 residential units on a property. This again is through a combination of our backyard suite and secondary suites. The R6 zone also permits things like home-based businesses, small daycares, and low-density recreational resource uses. The C2 general business zone permits a broader range of uses. It allows all the same low-density residential opportunities, again offering up to 4 units on each lot, but it also has a range of commercial uses. These include things like retail shops, small service businesses, offices, clinics, banks, restaurants without drive-thrus, and post offices, and other similar small-scale residential commercial activities. So overall, whether or not the land ends up being rezoned R6 or C2, it still offers the same options as far as low-density uses goes, but just that C2 zone adds the option for a mix of small-scale commercial uses within that surrounding community. So moving on to public engagement. The level of public engagement here was consultation. This was achieved through providing information seeking and comments through the HRM website. Signage was posted on the subject site. We mailed out 24 letters to property owners and tenants within the notification area and there was a recorded PowerPoint presentation shared on the Engage HRM website. We only received 3 phone calls and emails. The HRM website received a total of 745 page views as of April 9th, with an average time of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So that engagement identified four themes. So what came of that were, first of all, concerns regarding increased traffic volume and the lack of public transportation to support new developments. So as part of this application, a transportation impact statement was provided. The statement did not highlight any concern with access or egress on the Ketch Harbor Road, and confirmed that there was no transit service in the area. Our second theme was concerns that the C2 zoning on the proposed Lot 2 could allow undesirable commercial uses that are not in keeping with the character of the area. So again, we refer back to policy RA4, which enables those general business uses on the lot. This again is within the designation, and that of course imposes limits on the square area and further limitations within the land use bylaw. These are like controls on built form, lot coverage, and other controls subject to whichever use is chosen. Thirdly, concerns that further development or clear cutting this lot would increase stormwater runoff, erosion, and flooding risks during severe weather events. So here, where a stormwater management plan was not explicitly required as part of the application, the submission of a grade alteration plan will be required at the time of permitting. And this will demonstrate that the anticipated site uses can appropriately manage stormwater. And lastly, concerns that the new development may lead to rising property taxes, putting financial strain on residents. All that being said, the staff recommendation contained in the staff report was arrived at after detailed analysis of all relevant policies in the regional and local municipal planning strategies, and staff recommend that the Halifax and West Community Council approve the amendments to Schedule A of the Planning District 5 Land Use Bylaw and rezone 1246 Ketch Harbor Road from P5 to R6 and C2. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Craig. We'll now open it for questions from Community Council. Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Okay, thank you. And this is for questions of clarification.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That was a well done report. Appreciated all the information. I think you covered pretty much everything. I had a couple questions about. Well, first of all, with the P5, the existing zoning, what's currently permitted on that site under P5? Like, what could somebody do as of right there?
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. Currently, that P5 zone, again, does not permit any residential uses. It mostly permits institutional uses and further uses just like that telecommunication facility. So more institutional.
Okay. I was just thinking in regards to traffic, like if that was resurrected as a telecommunications facility, there would be probably traffic associated with that as well, and there probably was in the past. I'm also just about R6. That's the underlying zoning for that area. Did the lots surrounding that current lot, are they all R6?
Through the chair of the deputy mayor, yes. Most of those lots, if not all of those lots surrounding that lot, are zoned R6.
Okay, so this is just conforming with what's already existing. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Craig. My question was just about the well and septic. Like, it sounds like there could be 20 units there. When does that get looked at in the process to know if the site can handle that?
Through the chair of the councillor, that is generally anticipated initially with this application. We were sent a document from Able Engineering, just noting that should each of those lots be developed to capacity, that there would not be any issues moving forward. But generally, when an application is made for a building permit, that's when these things are considered. They need to be approved by our development engineering group at the city.
Okay, but you've already seen something from Able that
Correct.
sounds
Yes.
like it'll be okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. Were there any wetlands on the site? It seemed from one of the maps that there might be.
Through the chair to the councillor, there were no wetlands as defined in the land use bylaw located on site, but the survey did note a wet area.
A wet area. How do we define that?
It's not generally noted in the land use bylaw itself. Just with regard to wet area, it's something that should be avoided initially for development.
Okay, and which lot is that on?
That's on the proposed lot 3.
On 3. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Morse, do you have further questions?
I'm sorry.
Okay,
No, that's it
no
for me.
worries.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Not seeing any other questions of clarification, we'll move along to open the public hearing. So the public hearing is now open, and I'll invite the applicant, a representative of the applicant, to come forward, Isabelle Chumelin, to provide their presentation, and you'll be given 10 minutes. Please proceed when you're ready, and the light will turn green for you. No.
Do I continue? Oh, perfect. Thank you. Sorry. Good evening, councilors and chair. My name is Isabel. I'm a planning manager at Sightline. Tonight I'm here to present on the proposed rezoning for 1246 Ketch Harbor Road. Sightline has been managing the rezoning application on behalf of the property owners. Able Engineering is responsible for the civil engineering work, and JRL Consulting conducted the traffic impact statement. 1246 Ketch Harbor Road is a large 23-acre property. There's one existing building with a parking area on site, previously used as a federal telecommunications office. The property is otherwise vacant. You can see a photo of the existing building here. The existing P5 zoning allows for a limited range of uses, including research facilities, fire and police stations, community centers, and some conservation uses. But ultimately, the special facility zone does not allow for new residential units, so no single-family homes or two-unit homes. The request is to rezone the property from special facility to rural residential and general business. Here's what the proposed rezoning would look like. The portion of the property with the existing building would be zoned general business, and the rest of the property would be zoned rural residential, which is the same as the neighboring properties you can see across the street. The purpose of rezoning a portion of the property from special facility to the general business zone is to allow the existing 9,000 square foot building to be repurposed for residential units. So the intention is not necessarily for the property owners to operate a commercial space, and any future owner must meet the zoning requirements. So for example, in the general business zone, the gross floor area of any commercial use cannot exceed 5,000 square feet. And some of the types of commercial uses allowed include a retail store, grocery store, service shop, office, medical clinic, or post office. In order to have these two different zones on the property, a preliminary subdivision application has gone through the HRM review process. The preliminary subdivision plan includes 5 new lots, as shown here. And here you can see that there's that one lot with the proposed general business zone and 4 lots zoned rural residential. So if the rezoning is approved, the property owner would be allowed to convert that existing building into a mixed-use building with up to 5,000 square feet of commercial and 2 dwelling units, or convert the existing building to residential units only with 2 dwelling units similar to the other lots with that rural residential zoning. If the rezoning is approved, the 4 rural residential lots would allow for single unit and 2 unit homes, shared housing, or home businesses. And here's what that Schedule A zoning map from the land use bylaw showing the property's current special facility zoning in relation to the other zones in the area. And here's what the zoning map would look like if the rezoning request is approved. So overall, the rezoning does not appear to conflict with the neighboring land uses. JRL Consulting submitted a traffic impact statement, and the results show that the traffic generated by the proposal is minimal, and so is traffic in the immediate area, so we don't expect any significant impacts surrounding the transportation network. To conclude, here's a quote from the Chebucto Peninsula Municipal Planning Strategy that speaks to the intention of the Rural A MPS designation. So while residential development is the primary form of land use, the Rural A designation provides support for home occupations, small-scale resource uses, and recreation uses. In addition, there's provisions within the designation to accommodate general business uses. So ultimately, rezoning this property would allow a large vacant lot on a vacant building to be repurposed for residential units, and I believe the proposal reasonably aligns with the intention of the municipal planning strategy. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Isabel. Are there any questions of clarification from Community Council? Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just one question. I mean, as you're going through this with the applicant, what is the intent behind the rezoning? Are you able to discuss that at this point?
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. So it is very early stages at this point. But I believe the intention is to look for a development partner. But yeah, it's still very preliminary.
And to develop the 4 lots as residential development, like as permitted by the R6 zone?
Correct. And the intention with the commercial building would be to allow for more flexibility. So instead of a 9,000 square foot building split up into 2 units, there's the potential to do 3,000 square feet that would be a commercial space, 3,000 for 1 unit, and 3,000 for a second unit. So it just gives more flexibility for that existing building to really be broken up in a way that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuttle. Okay. Not seeing any other questions of clarification. We will move along now to the speakers list. Members of the public will be given 5 minutes to address the topic. When I call your name, you may come up to the microphone. Please state your name and the name of your community the name of the community in which you reside. You can use the timer on the center table to monitor your own speaking time. The clerk will hold up a yellow sign when you have 30 seconds remaining, and when your time is complete, the clerk will hold up a red sign. Please keep your comments respectful, on topic and directed to the chair. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I will call 3 times to see if there are any additional speakers. And I see the clerk has picked up the list, and I believe it's blank. So we will see if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to speak. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak? Come forward, please.
Some ad for information packages if you're interested in.
Clerk, maybe you will handle those. So if you could please state your name and the name of the community, and you'll have 5 minutes once we start the timer. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, clerk. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, not seeing any other speakers. We'll now move on. Go ahead, Councillor Clary. I saw you put your hand up. Did you have a point of order?
No, are we closing the public hearing?
I was just getting to that point, yes. So seeing no additional speakers on the list, we'll move along. So I'll now ask, okay, could I have a motion to close the community council? Thank you, Councillor Clary, and seconded by the Deputy Mayor. So the public, all those in favor, please signify by raising their hand or saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion carries. So the public hearing is now closed. Now, I would ask staff if they wish to, so there weren't any speakers. What are the wishes of Community Council? Okay, no, we haven't put the motion on the floor yet. Is there a member that would like to introduce the motion? I see Councillor Cuttle is ready to do that. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Halifax and West Community Council adopt the amendment to Schedule A of the Land Use Bylaw for Planning District 5, Chebucto Peninsula, as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated March 6, 2026.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Hinch. Go ahead, Councillor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For those of us here that are new on council, this has been a journey. We had received an application prior to this one for 66 units on this lot, and which was not recommended by staff, and hence we are here today with this proposal, which I think is in keeping with the local character. It's in keeping with the land use bylaw. It's repurposing an existing building that's currently sitting there empty, falling. An empty, uninhabited building is not a good thing. So, I like the idea of the rehabilitation and reuse of this existing building on the lot. The introduction of commercial when I the last election, knocking on doors out there, people were interested in things like daycares. They're interested in things like an opportunity for small business. There's a lot of tourism traffic that comes through here, so it is a real opportunity for perhaps some local community economic development. I do note that There were some concerns about traffic. Again, I think when we look at this proposal compared to the original proposal, the traffic impact isn't significant. And, I don't see that as a reason not to approve this proposal. I think one of the things I'd like to note was about the transit, and that, well, there is no transit there currently. There is the potential to have microtransit servicing this area in the very near future through the rural microtransit program that we approved earlier this year, which would be a really fantastic addition, not just for residents, existing residents and new potential residents, but also for people that come to this area to visit and recreate. There are concerns noted as well about the stormwater runoff, and again, I think staff addressed that this is not the point where we get into that detail about the stormwater runoff. That will come later when building permits are pulled and site development plans are made. So again, that's not a reason at this point to not approve it. And also Councillor Morris noted the wetland, or the wet area, I believe is what staff referred to it as. And it has been an ongoing discussion, and I think it's one of the reasons too for the reconfiguration of the lots when I spoke with them. So all in all, I think this is a reasonable request, and I think it's the other thing I'm just going to note really quickly while I have time here. What I like about this too is that it's built on an existing road. It's not in that area. There's a lot of long meandering private roads that go way back into the WUI, the wilderness urban interface, which poses risks of its own, on their own. In this instance, we're building along the Ketch Harbor Road with easy access to that existing infrastructure, and so I see that as a positive as well. So with that, I'm going to support this, and I ask my council colleagues to support it as well.
Seeing no other names on the list, would someone like to call for the question? The question has been called for. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, the motion has passed. We will move on to the next item on the agenda. Item 10.1.1, Planning Application 2023-00408, Development Agreements for Multi-Lot Mixed-Use Development known as Regency Links. And so I'm now... we're now moving to the next agreement, and this is so I thank everyone who's joined us today for this public hearing. And the process we'll start with a staff presentation and questions of clarification from members of Community Council. Then the public hearing will open and the applicant will be given an opportunity to present. After that, we'll go to the public hearing speakers. Speakers can participate in person, or if you pre-registered by the deadline, you had the option to participate using Zoom. There's no deadline to speak in person as long as you are present in the chamber when I call for speakers. Clerk, can you confirm if any correspondence has been received for this public hearing by the 3 p.m. deadline today?
Chair Steele, I can confirm that correspondence was received and circulated for this item.
Okay. Thank you, Clerk. And I'll now ask for the staff presentation from Dean McDougall. Go ahead, Dean.
You can talk, right? There we go. I'm looking down here and it's red. Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, members of Community Council. My name is Dean McDougall. I'm acting principal planner with Development Services Urban Enabled Applications team. And I'll be providing the staff presentation for the public hearing of Plan App 2023-00408. The applicant for this application is WM Fairs Architects, and they're acting on behalf of the property owner. The location are lands near the Halifax Mainland Common, so off of Regency Park Drive and Washmill Lake Drive. And the proposal is for a mixed-use, multi-lot development. And this type of application, planning application, is a development agreement application. In terms of site context, so both images on your screen show the 3 subject properties outlined in red. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the proximity of the site in relation to Clayton Park, Lacewood Drive, and Clayton Park West, the community of Fairview, Highway 102, and Bayers Lake. And on the right, we tried to zoom in a little bit, but it's a large site, as you can tell, so the zoom in didn't do much. But you can see where Washmill Lake Drive cuts through 2 of the subject PIDs. Highway 102, Mount Royal subdivision, and then on the top left-hand side of the image, you can see where Regency Park Drive currently ends, and then also where the Mainland Common is located. For neighborhood context, the site is surrounded by a mix of uses, although it's predominantly residential. And the residential surrounding the area is provided for in a apartment building form, predominantly mid-rise apartment buildings. There are some low-density residential uses, which are shown on the image here near the site. And then also for other uses, it's largely recreation, parks, and institutional uses. So the open space being the Mainland Commons, and then also we have the institutional uses with the rec center and the high school also located nearby. Planning policy overview. So similar to my colleague, I'll provide sort of a quick planning 101 about the 3 levels of documents in HRM that sort of guide development and growth in our community and our municipality. So we'll start with the regional plan. This document is 30,000 feet in the air. It looks at all of HRM, and it guides where population growth and the investment of services like transit, piped water, and sewer should occur. So very high level. Next, we have the community plan. So we zoom in a little bit closer to a very specific geographic area. And the community plan for this application is the Halifax Municipal Planning Strategy. And the community plan gets a little bit more detailed about what type of uses can happen where. It outlines where and how which types of development may occur, either through the land use bylaw, which I'll speak to in a second, or through planning applications. Such as the one you're hearing tonight. So it outlines some uses that can be considered, but only if there's community consultation done and approval by council. So next we have the land use bylaw. And now this is the most detailed document we have. It follows through on the community plan. So just as an example, the community plan may have said, yes, residential is acceptable use here. The land use bylaw is the teeth that provides that land use on those properties. So it outlines the zone, the permitted uses, and the regulations within it. If you can meet the permitted use and the regulations, you don't need any special approval. You can go and get a permit from a development officer. This slide outlines the different stages of the development agreement and planning application process. We've navigated our way through the different stages and are now at the public hearing. So a decision by Community Council will be provided here tonight on this application. And that decision by Council is appealable. There is a 14-day appeal period. Planning overview. So I'll just provide some details on some of the planning parameters around applicable to the site. So it's serviced by municipal sewer and water. The zoning is the R3 zone. Its designation is the residential environments. So that's the designation found in the community plan. The existing use is commercial recreation and also vacant land. And now the enabling policies. So these are the policies found in the community plan that allow for this application to be considered. And the first is policy 3.23, and then through that, policies 3.3, 3.3.1, and 3.3.2. Excuse me. Before I get into those planning policies, I do just want to take a step back and talk about the planning history, just to provide some background and context to this. So I will be saying the word Schedule K a lot during this presentation. And Schedule K is the name of the policy and zoning for this area that lived within the Halifax Municipal Planning Strategy. And it, when it was created 45 years ago, it identified this area, the subject site and beyond, shown on the image here, as an area identified for growth. And that growth could happen on a case-by-case basis through planning applications and comprehensive planning through development agreements. As we know, these lands have largely been developed over the past several decades. You can see Clayton Park West phases 1 through 5, and then the Mount Royal subdivision. The subject site's outlined in red, and it is the last remaining vacant land within the Schedule K zoned area. And the Schedule K policies, they envisioned a two-stage approval process. So the stage 1 was very high-level matters such as land use, residential densities, parking requirements, parkland dedication, and road network. So it was very conceptual, the stage 1. And then following the stage 1 approval, there'd be applications for stage 2. And this is where you get into much more detailed matters such as residential unit types and locations. We were looking at the architectural building designs of each building. So the intent was that each building would come in through a stage 2 agreement. Now, as this is the last remaining Schedule K lands within the area, the applicant is requesting consideration of both the stage 1 and the stage 2 development agreements under this application. And as members of the community and council may already know, in 2018, Community Council approved a Stage 1 development agreement for the site, and the site plan is shown here on the screen. That agreement permits 1,216 residential units, including apartments and townhouses, and also the extension of Regency Park Drive through to Washmill Lake Drive. In 2023, the property owner applied to amend the existing development agreement, which is the subject application before you today. Now, given the significant changes to the proposal, it's recommended that we discharge the existing Stage 1 development agreement and replace it with the proposed application. This is just a matter of sort of process. Instead of going line by line through the old agreement, it's easier just to discharge and then replace it with new. It's cleaner for administrative purposes. And then I'd also like to highlight that while this application was being considered, in 2024, the Housing Accelerator Fund amendment package was brought before Regional Council and approved. And as part of that package, the Schedule K lands were removed from the planning policy. And this was largely done to enable the built lands. As I mentioned, most of the Schedule K lands were already built and have been built for a long time. It was an opportunity to allow those properties to take advantage of the expanded development rights, largely secondary suites, and then also the opportunity to get up to 4 units per lot. So the Schedule K was removed, and whatever was built, the underlying zone was replaced to reflect that existing development pattern. So an example would be a single unit dwelling was built under Schedule K, that was removed, and the lands were zoned R1 through half amendments. But because they removed the Schedule K policies, which this application was being considered under, transition policy was inserted into the plan. So that leads us to our first enabling policy, which is 3.23. Now, this was a transition policy that allows council to consider in-progress applications for the Schedule K lands. And there are some parameters around that the application would have to proceed to a public hearing within 36 months of the first reading of the half amendments. So that 36 months would be next year. So with that transition policy, we were allowed to continue evaluating the application as intended when it came in. And those were under the policies of the Schedule K. So those were policies 3.3, 3.3.1, and 3.3.2. Now, these policies allow for council to consider comprehensive developments within the Schedule K lands. So as mentioned, this area was identified for growth a long time ago, 45 years ago, and over time that growth has happened and been built out. But the policies were written into the plan that helped staff and council evaluate those applications coming in for the growth. So it lists a bunch of criteria to evaluate the application against, and that some of the criteria provided in the plan include that the proposal be primarily residential, that there's an emphasis on a mix of housing types, there's provision for commercial uses, there's a conservation of the natural environment, and that it provides a multimodal transportation network. So that brings us to our proposal. Now, I won't go into great detail, as I know the applicant will cover the proposal as well. But high level, the proposal is for 18 buildings ranging in height from 16 to 28 stories and 3,830 residential units. Commercial space located along Regency Park Drive. Approximately 4 acres of public parkland. Just shy of 3 acres of private landscaped open space and amenity areas. And just shy of 10 acres of non-disturbance area. And also, the extension of Regency Park Drive through to Washmill Lake Drive. So the agreement, as mentioned, this is going to be a stage 1 and stage 2 agreement. The request is for both agreements into one. So staff's answer to that request is to write a pseudo land use bylaw amendment. So the agreement takes the approach of the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw by requiring form-based codes that will provide predictable built physical form. So controls are included within the agreement to regulate the building height provisions, maximum street wall heights, maximum floor plate requirements. There's requirements in there about activating the streetscape and providing pedestrian-oriented ground floors, and then also wind and microclimate study requirements at the building permit stage. In addition, I mentioned that approximately just shy of 4 acres of parkland is to be added to the existing mainland commons. And there is a requirement to construct a trail as part of that dedication on that new parkland to connect to the existing trail within the mainland common. With this development, a key gap in the mobility network is being provided, and that is the extension of Regency Park Drive to Washmill Lake Drive. The extension of Regency Park Drive, it's an important piece of infrastructure that will complete a key link in the transportation system. So improving access and connectivity for the pedestrians, but also other modes of transportation, including transit. And it will help relieve some of the existing pressure on the broader transportation network today, improving the overall movement. This connection has been long contemplated but not provided until this proposal. So Regency Park Drive, it will be a complete street, meaning it will include transit, bike, and pedestrian infrastructure. And the agreement requires that it be built first. So the agreement requires that the street, including the traffic lights, bus stops, bike lanes, and sidewalks, come first ahead of the development. In terms of public engagement feedback, the level of engagement completed was consultation. This was achieved through the HRM website, signage posted on the subject site, a mail-out notification, an online survey, and an online information video. In terms of notifications mailed, so I'll provide some stats on that engagement. 2,640 notifications were mailed out. 12 individuals either called or emailed the planner on the file, me, directly. 2,866 web page views were provided. I just want to pause on that stat for 1 second. So for clarification, that number is not just views on the site. It's unique views, meaning it's directly tied to IP addresses. So it's not capturing people that have visited the site multiple times through the planning application. It's also not capturing people that are hitting refresh. You can take this as face value that those are eyes on the individual eyes on the application. So that's quite a substantial number. That's in my 2017, I started planning applications, and I don't think we've ever come close to a number like that for eyes on the engagement. In terms of survey responses, we've had 105 survey responses, and the survey responses are attached to the staff report that was circulated prior to the meeting. But staff did provide, or can provide, a summary in terms of themes of the feedback that was provided. So traffic safety was an obvious theme that and concern provided by the residents and those that responded to the survey. Construction and impact on infrastructure was another concern. Loss of green space. And then lastly, identifying that there is a need for housing and general support for the development. Now, development process. I know this is a text-heavy slide, but I do think it's important to quickly touch on the development process and what is exactly being asked to be decided, or a decision is going to be made on here tonight. So if you recall, when I talked about the planning documents in HRM, you start higher up in the regional plan and you move down into the land use bylaw where you get more detailed. It's an application of this complexity and size follows a similar process. So the first step is sort of the high level approval that happens as part of the creation of the Schedule K policies within the municipal planning strategy. So it was identified for growth with details to be determined through the comprehensive planning process. That work's been done. Now it brings us to the next stage, the concept stage, we'll call it, where the development agreement. That's the subject of council's decision tonight. And things here come into a little bit more focus. So that's where we're in a conceptual world still, but you start seeing where the roads and parks are going to be located, the location and size of the parks and open spaces, the general building locations and massing parameters are written into the agreement. Pedestrian and trail network concepts are provided, the establishment of design standards, and then broad urban design and public realm framework. So all of that is written into the agreement. It's only when and if the DA is approved and the development rights are granted that we move into the subdivision and permitting stage, which is the detailed design stage. And this is where the specifics really come to light. This is getting into the weeds and looking at it. So, and this is, as it states, where the detailed design happens. So things like the road geometry, grading and servicing, street tree species and spacing, detailed landscaping and planting plans, trail alignment and construction details, building architecture, fenestration materials, all that's looked at in the detailed design, including wind and microclimate studies, and then also detailed stormwater management. So all of this is to come later through the detailed design, once the agreement, the conceptual pieces are in place. So elements of the development agreement, I've touched on this already, but I'll quickly go over it again. 18 buildings ranging from 16 to 28 stories, 3,830 residential units, multi-unit predominantly with grade-oriented units provided, 14,000 square meters of commercial space along Regency Park Drive, the extension of Regency Park Drive to Washmill Lake Drive with bike lanes, transit, and active transportation connections. Parks, trails, and open space integrated into the mainland common, including, as I mentioned, approximately 4 acres of parkland and 3 acres of landscaped amenity space. A non-disturbance area of approximately 10 acres to protect a significant wetland and riparian zone. And then ultimately to allow for a mixed-use high-rise development required to meet regional center land use bylaw type regulations. Some key aspects, as I mentioned, the agreement establishes a pseudo land use bylaw, so detailed building and site design is going to be addressed at permitting. Regulations and standards are set now in the agreement to guide that detailed design, so wind studies are required. Streetscaping requirements are also written in, as well as detailed stormwater management. And then an updated traffic study is also required at 60% build out, and this is to reassess the infrastructure and impacts at key intersections in and around the development. Non-substantive amendments. A non-substantive amendment is a change to the agreement which can be made without a formal public hearing. So the development officer or community council could authorize this change by resolution. And these include Changes to the building siting and landscaping requirements due to unforeseen topographical challenges at detailed design. Changes to the bike parking requirements to reflect the standards of the underlying land use bylaw regarding the rate of Class A and B parking provisions. And then lastly, the extension to the dates of commencement and completion of development. So staff recommendations. Staff recommend, first, the staff recommendation contained in the staff report was arrived after a detailed analysis of all relevant policies in the regional and local municipal planning strategies. And staff recommend that Halifax and West Community Council approve the proposed development agreements, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in attachment A and B of the staff report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dean. That was a long report. Thank you. Are there any questions of clarification from Community Council? Go ahead, Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Dean. How long have you been working on this? 2 years, did you say, or is it 3?
Through you, Chair, to the Council for 3 years.
3 years.
And counting.
Okay. Just a few questions. What would have to change to bring this back to Halifax and West Community Council or Regional Council? Sort of what types of things would bring it back? And what is the proposed width of the street? How many lanes for traffic? And will the stormwater be piped into the wetland?
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. Changes would be substantial changes. And what that means is asking for anything outside of what I went over here in the presentation. So an increase in height, that would be a substantial change. Increase in density, that's a substantial change. Removing requirements that we've written about wind studies or anything like that, all substantial. And that would require us coming back to Community Council.
Okay, thank you. The street, the width of the street?
I will have to look that one up real quickly, the width of the street.
It is going to be classified as a major collector, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. So it'll be designed to have AAA bike network,
Yes.
Sidewalks, traffic lanes, as well as bus stops. Now,
Okay.
the exact amount of traffic lanes, that's what I was going to look up.
Okay. It's just in some of the drawings, it looked like it was 4 lanes, but I don't think that's the case.
The applicant may know that off the top of their head, but if not, I can come back and answer that question.
We can have that later then. And then the stormwater piped into the wetland. Is that what's going to be happening with the stormwater?
Well, the stormwater, through your chair to the councillor, the detailed stormwater servicing hasn't been completed yet. The wetland is located across the street from the major part of the development. That's the almost 10 acres that's being preserved as non-disturbance area. Our regulations require, at the minimum, that our administrative order on stormwater management, that flow from a site post-development has to be the exact same as pre-development.
Yes.
And also there's requirements about treating that stormwater management before it goes into any wetland or into the natural environment. So I can't answer right now without the detailed design of if it's going to go in, but the requirements and the regulations they have to meet, if it is, then it has to be treated, and any flow can't be more than what's flowing there today.
Okay, that's great. I have time for another question, or yeah. Okay, and in the report it says that there is capacity for wastewater, sewer, that sort of thing, right now. But there are a lot of other developments pending in the area. So at what point would we make sure that there is capacity there once it comes time for building?
Through your chair to the councillor, several times in the remaining development process. So right now, a high-level analysis was completed, as you mentioned. It happens again at the subdivision stage when they come in for this to construct the street and get the lot approval for each lot. And then it happens again at each individual permit. So capacity is not reserved from Halifax Water. So that's why it's evaluated at each stage. So this is just there's different steps in the process and different times that Halifax Water evaluates the capacity to ensure that it doesn't go over capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what happens if they don't have capacity when it comes time to build? Then what?
That's a fantastic question, Councillor. We haven't, in my experience, I haven't come across that yet, but obviously upgrades need to be completed.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dean. Got another new town we're looking at here. Okay, lots of thoughts. I'm wondering about commercial. I understand it's primarily residential, but if you can talk about what's going to be in, because it does talk about some of the residential units will be ground level. So how does that leave space for commercial? It talked about a change in bike parking. Could you explain if that kind of made it better or worse? I couldn't quite tell. It'd be nice to have some indoor space for bikes. I've never thought of this before, but I'm wondering how many people on staff take a look at this. I know you've been working hard on it, but when we do these big, like any application, but when it's such a big one, like, are there a lot of people discussing it and going back and forth on if you think it makes sense? Wetlands. And then my final one is about how does this fit in with the suburban plan that's ongoing? See if you can get to that. Thank you.
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. So the commercial uses. Along Regency Park Drive, the agreement permits commercial uses within the first 2 stories, and those would be local commercial uses. So there's a schedule within the agreement that lists the permitted uses, but generally speaking, it'd be, uses that would support the immediate development, but also around. So restaurants. I mean, there's quite an extensive list there, but okay. The intent is to be not major commercial, local commercial uses. Okay. That would be for along Regency Park Drive. For the buildings that aren't fronting Regency Park Drive, there's requirements for ground-oriented and access units. So that would be either townhouse-style units or the ability to have a work-live unit for some individual that they could have their bottom floor be a hair salon and then upstairs they live. So those would be the uses permitted off of Regency Park Drive. In terms of the bike parking, that one, I mean, it's meant to meet the regulations of the current land use bylaw, which is the Halifax mainland land use bylaw. That was put in there to, if the suburban if the suburban plan comes into effect, and there's different regulations in the suburban plan about bike parking, that would give the opportunity to the developer to amend the agreement to allow them to use those regulations instead of the ones today on the Halifax mainland land use bylaw. And the intent there is that we'll be further along in the planning process about bike infrastructure and requirements for buildings, so we can just be able to piggyback on the work that's being done under the suburban plan. That's the intent behind that.
So the intent is to improve it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for the review process, yes, I'm definitely not the only person that reviews this. I'm not smart enough. We have a team. I can go through it. We go to what's called a team review process. It's a bi-weekly meeting where planners bring an application. And at that meeting, we have Halifax Fire, we have traffic engineers, we have Nova Scotia Community Places, we have different agencies, Halifax Water review agencies there. We present the application, everyone raises their hand if they want to review it or not. That kicks off the review process. So then it gets reviewed by the different agencies, both internal and external. External being Halifax Water, or if it's along a provincial road, Nova Scotia Department of Public Works, and for their comments, for them to provide comments to the planner. So that's generally the process. And so we go through that negotiations and review process through the application process until we refine it to an application that staff are comfortable making a positive recommendation on.
Okay.
Oh,
Wetlands, that's the only wetland.
wetlands. I'll let the applicant speak to some of the wetlands, but there are wetlands on the site that are proposed to be removed. I don't want to speak out of turn, so I'll let the applicant speak about the wetland alteration permits for those. But the largest wetland on the site, as I mentioned, is being retained. I think
There's three.
I believe, again, I'll let the applicant confirm, but 3 in total, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor White. Having one round of questions, is the committee okay if I pose a few questions? Okay, thanks. Thanks for your patience. Dean, you mentioned transit linkages and how Regency Park going through to Washmill would improve transit linkages. I'm sure you're referring to feedback that was received from Halifax Transit. Can you elaborate a bit on that? What it might look like? Because I know we don't have bus rapid transit yet, nor is it really, I don't believe it's intended to go up Regency Park Drive anyway. So maybe you can comment on that.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. So the intent is, yes, to have this road serviced by transit. That was the intent provided, or direction provided by Halifax Transit to planning staff. We incorporated bus stops along Regency Park Drive into the agreement that would need to be provided, as well as on Washmill, so additional stops on Washmill. The actual specifics about what route, or 1 or 2 or 3, that is all to come through the subdivision planning process. This is on their radar. They're aware of it. It's conceptual at this stage. If approved by community council and the applicant comes in for a subdivision, that's when they start realizing, okay, this is actually going to happen, so we'll start planning those routes. But yes, I can't speak to specific routes that are going to be on that road, but is absolutely intended to be serviced by transit.
Okay, thank you. I have another question around the trail building, and I know it's conceptual at this point. You mentioned that the road and the traffic lights would go in immediately, or as you know, at the beginning of the project. What about the trails? What sort of timeline are we looking at? And how would the trail design be worked out? Would it be Parks and Recreation? Would the community groups that have been involved with managing the trails, would they be consulted? I'm curious about how that, being a big trail user myself, I'll admit, I'm curious on how that process will evolve.
Thank you for the question. Along with the street, parkland will be provided first. Because there's no phasing proposed as part of this application, so when they come in for subdivision application, we're going to be requiring all those things first. So the parkland dedication will be required first, and through the subdivision application evaluation process, they work with the development officer and our parkland planners on that trail construction. So there are some parameters written into the agreement about what that trail is to look like. But the detailed design happens in consultation with our parkland planner, active transportation, and the development officer during the subdivision stage. In terms of feedback from the community, I've already received some feedback about this trail and provided it to the parkland planner. So yes, the feedback is always considered, but the regulations provided in the agreement, and then also best practices about trails and the municipal design guidelines on trails within our red book also drive how that trail is going to look like.
Okay, thank you, Dean. We'll go to Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about why the extension of Regency Park Drive is considered such an essential piece of road infrastructure from the planning point of view.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. Yes, this piece of Regency Park Drive, it has been contemplated for decades. Planning was done differently back in the late 90s. So it was happening piecemeal as development came online, and obviously development stopped. So a lot of the traffic studies that were done as part of the development, and even in the creation of Washtenaw Lake Drive, anticipated this connection. So the design of these streets really thought that this connection was going to happen, and so a lot of the pressures that are being felt by the community, largely because this connection hasn't been built yet, right? There's only one way really to get into the school and the BMO Center and all that, right? This allows another opportunity, sort of relieve the pressure on the streets on Lacewood that's being received right now, because people have to drive around to get there, but then they'll have the opportunity. So it's going to spread out, so to speak, the weight, as intended.
So I can see that it would relieve some of the pressure on Lacewood, but would it not funnel and create more pressure on some other streets, like Main Avenue, for example?
Through you, Chair to the Councillor, for this development or in general traffic?
No, just once the extension is made on Regency
Yes.
Lake, would it not enable more people to be sort of funneled through from the Bears Lake, Clayton Park West area through that street and then down Main Avenue?
Yeah, the traffic impact study did look at the distribution of the residents of this proposed development. And that distribution was based off of existing rates and patterns. I'm going to speak from memory here. The traffic impact study, I believe it was 30% anticipated going to Washmill, down Washmill to Dunbrack. And then from there, if you get into the weeds of the study, most users were going to be taking a right to the highway, not necessarily down Main Street. And these numbers were based on current distribution rates. So it's assumptions made that the people are going to travel the same way they are today traveling down that road. So yes, traffic will increase. I'm not saying that, but it does get, by the time it gets to Dunbrack, there is going to be a distribution of that 30%. So it's not all 3,830 going down Main Street, so to speak.
So it's anticipated that the highway will take quite a bit of the traffic.
Yes.
Although there is congestion on that highway, and there are plans to expand that, I guess, as well. Okay. Did have another. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions again, I have one last question. I believe there were some townhouse style units as part of this in some of the documents that I read. This is still part of the proposal?
That is correct, Madam Chair. Townhouses built into the podium of the multiple unit dwellings. So they won't be townhouses in the sense of just isolated townhouses. The podium will have grade related accesses, which are townhouse-like. So if you think of some of the developments around the city where it looks like there's units right onto the street, and then above it a tower, that would be the form of development here.
Thank you. Not seeing any other questions, I'll say thank you, Dean. And we'll move on to open the public hearing. And I'll invite the applicant to address the Community Council. You have 10 minutes, and the clerk will note with 30 minutes remaining. And we have Cesar Sala and John Dibb from WM Fairs Architects. So please go ahead when you're ready.
Is that okay? Good. Would you be kind enough to grant me a few more minutes than the 10 minutes, considering the scale of the project? And would you be okay if I take 2 or 3 more minutes than the 10 minutes, to the benefit of council and to the benefit of the public as well? I just don't want to feel rushed, and if 2 or 3 more minutes would help.
What is the will of council? Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. You are granted an additional number of minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of council, Halifax West Community Council. My name is Cesar Sala, representing the applicant for the proposed mixed-use development at Mainland Commons, which we are calling Regency Links. This application comes before you following a comprehensive review process, and as noted in the staff report, staff are recommending approval for the Stage 1 and Stage 2 development agreements. The site is located at a critical point between several established communities: Fairview, Clayton Park, Lacewood, and Bears Lake. It sits within a fully serviced urban area surrounded by residential neighborhoods, a major commercial center, and regional recreational facilities. It is in the center of the city. The site is immediately adjacent to a strong network of schools and community institutions, including Park West School, Fairview Junior High, Halifax West High School, and Keshen Goodman Library. This level of proximity supports walkability, families, and everyday convenience. Residents will also be in close proximity to a range of healthcare services, including Bears Lake Outpatient Center, Park West Medical Clinic, Clayton Park Medical Clinic, and Lacewood Medical Center. The site is adjacent to one of the most significant recreation hubs in Halifax, including Canada Game Center, Soccer Nova Scotia, and several Mainland Common sports fields. Access to recreation is immediate. Equally important is access to parks and trails, including Mainland Commons Park and Trail, Geezer Hill Trail, and Chain of Lakes Trail. These connections allow residents to move through the site and beyond using active transportation. The site is also supported by transit through the Lacewood bus terminal, providing strong connectivity across the municipality. Despite being surrounded by all these amenities, there is a missing connection in the road network. This slide shows the existing multi-mode circulation around the site, including pedestrian in yellow, cycling in green, and vehicular in red. This site shows the missing connection between Regency Park Drive and Washmill Lake Drive. If you drive today at the end of Regency, which is a collector road, it's barricaded with concrete. Today, residents must drive throughout Bears Lake Business Park or Lacewood to access schools, recreation, and services. This creates inefficiencies and unnecessary congestion. If you live in Mount Royal today and you want to access Canada Game Center, these are the two routes that you have to take. You either have to take Lacewood or you have to take Bears Lake. And you have to go through 8 or 9 intersections with multiple crosswalks. The same if you live in Fairview and you want to go to Halifax West High School. There are 2 routes, either Lacewood or Bears Lake. If you live on Green Park Close and you want to go to Fairview Junior High, these are the 2 routes that you have to get to take there. Taking any of these routes, it takes you about 10 minutes to get to where you need to go to. The extension of Regency Park Drive through the proposed development addresses this directly. It creates a new connection between Washmill Lake Drive and Regency Park Drive, allowing residents to access schools, parks, recreation, and community services without having to travel through commercial areas. This connection improves traffic distribution, reduces pressure on existing routes, connects communities that are currently separated. With this connection, the site becomes a part of a more complete and resilient network. The slide in front of you shows the area without this connection, and the slide in front of you today, right now, shows how, through this connection, the multi-mode circulation flows around the site and through the site. It supports vehicle, pedestrian, and cyclists, and improves how surrounding neighborhood functions together. So with this missing link, you can see how people from Fairview and from Mount Royal will connect through all the public services, including the school, through the new extension of Regency. Likewise, if you live in Green Park Close and you want to go to Moxie's or you want to go to Fairview Junior High, you don't have to make that left turn anymore. You turn right and you go to these. You don't have to go through Lacewood commercial area or Bears Lake commercial area. So it's benefiting both. It's connecting people to major recreational and commercial and institutional uses. Next, I would like to share with you some of the key elements for our concept plan. The concept plan begins with environmental responsibility. Areas with existing vegetation and natural features are identified as non-disturbance zones and are preserved and integrated into the design. We have about 14 acres of non-disturbance areas. The Regency Park Drive extension becomes the organizing spine of the development. Vehicle circulation is designed to be efficient, well-distributed, and coordinate with parking while minimizing conflicts with the pedestrians. The concept plan is guided by the site planning and urban design framework that organizes building open spaces, footprints, and circulation into a cohesive and connected layout. The site includes directed connections to Mainland Commons Trail, Geezer Hill Trail. This allows residents to move seamlessly between their homes, open spaces, and the broader trail network. The next slides illustrate a range of building forms across the site. The development includes a mix of tall mid-rise and high-rise buildings with heights ranging from 16 to 18 stories. So I'm going to go through, show you where this height is distributed. The first two buildings are 28 floors, then 25 floors. The two that we're showing, 24, 22 floors, 20 floors, 19 stories, and 4 buildings are 16 stories. These heights are strategically distributed across the site to enhance architectural articulation, create visual interest, and avoid uniform massing. This approach ensures a more dynamic skyline and a better relationship between buildings and open space. This slide highlights areas of the site that include mixed-use buildings with commercial uses at grade and residential above. These are intended for local commercial and service uses with opportunities for spill-out activity, patios, and active frontages. This slide shows mixed-use buildings that serve more of a neighborhood-oriented commercial uses at grade. These uses generate less traffic and more walkable, and therefore require less surface parking. This slide illustrates multi-unit residential buildings with townhouse-style grade-related units. These units have individual entrances, create a human-scale streetscape, and provide a strong interface between buildings and proposed open spaces. We spoke earlier about the multimode circulation around the site and through the site. The next slides break down the internal circulation system by mode. This slide shows pedestrian circulation, and this one shows bicycle routes. This slide shows vehicular movement, and this slide brings all of these together, demonstrating a complete multimode network that connects internally and ties into the broader community. This layered approach ensures safe pedestrian movement, active transportation options, and efficient vehicular access. Open space design. Despite being adjacent to parks and provincial recreational facilities, we want to take advantage of the vast amount of open space that our proposed concept plan provides. This site illustrates open space areas designated primarily for residential uses. These spaces include children's playgrounds, community gardens, basketball court, seating areas and gazebos, passive recreation spaces, and a mix of soft and hard landscaping. These areas are designed to support daily living and community interaction. This slide shows open spaces associated with commercial uses. These include hard landscape plazas, seating areas, outdoor patios, and vendor kiosks. These spaces are intended to support spill-out commercial activity and create vibrant and active public areas. This slide brings the entire master plan together. It illustrates how all elements, including connectivity, circulation, building form, open space, and land use, are integrated into a cohesive and well-organized site planning framework. And finally, the next few slides are massing representations and provide three-dimensional visualizations of the proposed open space areas. These images help illustrate how the spaces will feel at ground level, including scale, landscaping, seating and activity areas, and the relationship between buildings and open space. Collectively, what these slides demonstrate is that Regency Links is not just about buildings. It's about how these buildings, spaces, and connections come together to create a complete and livable community. Finally, I want to leave with a few points of what the merits of this proposal are. And why should Council approve this proposal? First, and I have five. I want to give you 5 reasons. First, your planning staff have completed a comprehensive planning assessment, policy assessment, and concluded that this proposal is consistent with the intent of the municipal planning strategy. Second, all relevant internal departments and external agencies have reviewed the servicing and technical aspects of the proposal, and their input is reflected in staff's positive recommendation before you today. Third, the form and building design guidelines embedded in the development agreement are grounded in the principles of the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw, emphasizing high-quality built form, articulation, and human-scale design, principles that were shaped through extensive public consultation. Fourth, this represents phased long-term growth. This is not a single build-out. It is a planned framework that will deliver over time, aligned with infrastructure, market demand, and the city's growth objectives. Fifth, and most importantly, the extension of Regency Park Drive. This is a big win for the city. Everyone who lives, shops, walks, studies, and plays in Fairview, Clayton Park, Lacewood, and Bears Lake is going to benefit from Regency Links. It's a win for our city, because the cost of this infrastructure is borne solely by the developer. And it's a win for staff, for their city, because staff has negotiated that all this work would be done first. Thank you. I would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Thank you. You fit it all in. Okay, looking for questions of clarification. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Cesar, for the presentation. Pretty massive project here. I'm wondering if you could highlight a few things that maybe it's early days yet, but do you have a target market and a planned unit mix? I'm wondering if there will be much in the way of housing for families at this, or if you're looking for a different sort of mix of residents. Will there be any below market units? And what is the timeline and the earliest possible start date for construction of the buildings? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Morse. Yes, there has been work on the unit mix, initial work on the unit mix. And right now, the proposal is 55% of two-bedroom types, 5% of three-bedroom types, and 45% of one-bedroom types. I know that this appears to be a large-scale development. I understand that. But I want to share with you that it's really not as much as you think. And here's why. The density per acre here is 80 units per acre. So we're doing work in almost, I want to say four of the areas of councils represented here today. And, you know, for example, I can tell you Councillor White and Councillor Cleary, 80 units per acre would be less than half, it would be about half of the units developed in your area per acre. I also were doing work in your area, Councillor Morse, and this would be comparable, 80 units per acre. It would be comparable to some of the projects that are happening right now. So I know it looks large, but there's 47.5 acres of land. So if you break that per acre, and if you consider that this is not coming all at the same time, we're talking about growth for 20 years here. This is not as massive of a project. It appears that is because that's what the development agreement is approving. We have to go through subdivision design. We have to go through road infrastructure design. That by itself will take 2 years. So then after that, it will be phased based on the marketability and availability of services. It's not coming all at the same time. It's a 20-year project.
But do you know when the earliest start date could be for construction of the buildings?
I would say, if I was to guess, a minimum of 2 years from today for the first building.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a minimum.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any below market units planned?
No, just fair market housing. Yeah. And the reason being, councillors want you to know why, because what the city is asking this developer to do is to pay about $12 to $15 million to build this road before they can even reap any benefits. So before the first building goes up, somebody has to pay $10 to $12 million without any benefit until that takes place, until the first building takes place. And I mean, that's the first building. They're putting this much capital in, even though this project is a 20-year project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Not seeing any other people on the board. Oh, go ahead, Councillor White. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I just jumped in. I can't help but see when you're talking about connecting the road, like there's other places in the world that do the exact opposite to encourage Like they would make this connection for buses, for walking, for biking, and not for driving, to encourage like a different mode of transportation. Like I'm just worried. I understand people here will have cars and need to connect, but I am a little concerned about in the increase of a cut through that this will make for people. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden it's easier to drive when you could walk. I understand it's a suburban context, but like, are we generating more trips here that, you know, could be other types of trips by connecting this road?
Thanks for asking the question. So, Councillor Laura, I live in that area, and I shop in that area, and my kids went to school in that area. I know this area very well, and I cannot explain to you how important this connection is. I think that everyone in Halifax is going to benefit from this connection. Not only the people of Fairview and Clayton Park and the businesses in Bears Lake. If anyone that shops from the city that goes and shops in Bears Lake is going to benefit from this connection. I'll give you an example. My kids have worked at the Canada Game Center and have gone to Canada Game Center, and my kids have gone to that high school. When I used to take my kids to that high school, I would go on Regency, and I feel the pain of all the people that are here. I would get there, I would park on the side, I would let off my kids on the side, then I would have to go forward because there's only way to go back out. I would drop off my kids, I would have to go forward, turn around, and drive back the same way. So I would be impacting both the traffic coming out of Green Park Close, both on the way going in and on the way going back. If this connection was there, I'm just giving you one example. People that are taking their kids to the high school, not everybody's walking to this high school. I'm one of them. I would have dropped off my kids and went the other way and went down. I work in Fairview and bottom of Fairview, going that way. This connection is a very important connection.
Thank you for your commentary. It's just something to think about. If we can make it more of a local road and not encourage a bunch of cut throughing and more trips. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Vice Chair Hinch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my only question is that if this does get approved, when does that when do you start to build that connection?
The good planning staff that you have written in the agreement that connection goes first. So that connection will be going as a first phase.
Do we have a date?
A date, you mean? Sorry, did you say date?
Do we have a date when you start construction?
I would say within a year.
Within a year?
Yeah, a year time, because it has to be designed and submitted for approval. So I'm going to allow a year of processing time.
And then 2 years before the first building starts to be developed?
Correct.
Correct. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hinch. If I may, I have a few questions of clarification before we go to the second round. Can you speak a bit to the traffic impact study and why certain areas, how you laid out, how the traffic impact study was laid out, and what was included, what wasn't included, and when it was actually completed? I know that, density and traffic are things that go together. So maybe you can speak a bit more about the traffic impact study.
Sure. So when we propose a project of this nature, we don't do a simple traffic statement. This is a comprehensive project that requires a full-blown traffic study. And it's not only us. We don't say, well, here's a traffic study. We meet with the traffic engineers, HM traffic engineers, and if there's any provincial connection, we also they're involved as well, and they require a scoping. So there are the standard requirements that you have. That the traffic consultants follow, but a project of this nature, that's not enough. So there's a scoping document, and the traffic engineers, your traffic engineers, could say we want a number of things added, right, to this traffic study. So we, as the planning and architectural side, we don't actually even get involved. There's requirements. There's a scoping document that establishes what the scope of that study is. It goes to the consultant. The consultant produces a document. It goes back to your traffic engineers. They review it. If they feel it's insufficient and they need more information, they request revisions and what have you. So it's a pretty comprehensive document. And honestly, I have to be honest with you, I'm not even qualified to go over, right? It just, it goes, at this point, us and your planning department, we're just facilitating this dialogue and this conversation. Whatever your traffic engineers, because they have the qualifications, want, they ask and they receive. And at the end, they determine if they are okay with it or not. And if not, we won't be sitting here.
Okay, I'll segue really quickly to community gardens. You mentioned some community gardens. Is that for the use of residents, or would there be public access for those? At
the time being, these are for the occupants of the buildings. That's how they were envisioned, right?
Where did you see the playground? I know you mentioned a playground, or maybe playgrounds.
There's a children's playground. The image that's in front of you this is the side of the project that has the townhomes at base. And again, this is a massing assessment, so it's the difference of materials are intended just to show the different elements of the form. So there is a children's playground that you can see in that between those buildings. Again, there are there's a basketball court there and more recreational spaces. So there's a children's playground in the area where that opens to the townhouses. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can show you.
Okay, we'll move to Councillor Morse then.
Thank you. Could you say what the commitment is on the width of Regency Park Drive, the extension there? What type of street will you be building? How wide will it be? And also, could you tell us a little bit about the parking? Will there be below ground parking? And what's the parking ratio to housing units? Thank you.
Yes, so thank you, Councillor Morse. For the first question, the geometry of the extension has to be consistent with what's there, because it just ends like this. It was envisioned. I'm sure you know the area.
I do.
It just cuts. It ends there. So there is. We're going to have. It is 2 lanes. It's not 4 lanes, with the possibility of parking on the side if HRM would allow, sidewalks, dedicated AAA bike lanes on both sides. So that is as far as and proper bus stops and crosswalks according to what HRM guidelines are going to be. As far as the parking, all the parking for the residential is underground, and there's a ratio of 1-to-1 parking. Because of the form of the building and because of the area of the land, it allows us that flexibility to provide one parking space per one unit. Having said that, whenever you have mixed uses, then they start feeding off one another. So people that come for visitors in the evening after businesses close. So there's more synergies between mixed-use buildings, but every building has underground parking and 1-for-1 ratio.
Okay, thank you. And could you tell us a little bit about how the stormwater will be managed? Whether the stormwater will be filtered and treated in any way, and if it's going into the wetlands.
Okay, so I do have our civil consultant with us, and if there's something specific, I can I can tell you that the water would be continuing to the wetlands. So that is there's that the and as far as your other question, what was your other question?
Well, sometimes runoff from parking areas and streets contains oil and other contaminants. So, is there any plan to filter it through sand or some other approach?
I'm pretty sure that this is code. Yeah. Do you mind if I ask?
No, that would be great. Thank you.
Ray Landry with Servant Dumbrack.
Thank you for the question. There's been a master stormwater plan prepared for HRM and the engineering team. The intent is to develop the land with best use practices, rain gardens to collect stormwater off the parking that's on surface. In addition to that, we're hoping to use some underground storage as well to recharge the groundwater, and in addition to that, we probably have some dispersion trenches around the extremities of the site to maintain some surface flow to the surrounding lands.
Okay, sounds good. Can you just give us a little description of what a rain garden might look like, or what that constitutes, what that is?
Sure. Okay. Yes, it's if you look around some of the areas in Halifax, you will notice green space between green islands, between parking spaces, or at the end of islands. The idea is to introduce those as depressions rather than just simply landscaped areas. So inside of that, you will find rock gardens and landscaping that will use up some of the water and also treat some of the water before it is removed from the site into pipes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Morris. You reminded of my wetland question, to come back to that. Could you speak about the wetlands in the area and what will stay? And it sounded like from staff that there's some you want to build on and others you want to maintain.
Yes, to you, Madam Chair, to Councillor White. There are, I think there are several small wetland areas, and there are some larger ones. The larger ones fall within the 10 acres of land across from Washmill that we are preserving. And the cluster of smaller wetlands, I think they might number in 3. We have already a wetland alteration. We applied to the province, and we have wetland alteration, and we provided compensation to create wetlands in different areas. So that process has already been completed.
Interesting. I didn't know about that. So you can somewhere else, not on this property. How?
That is a provincially regulated process,
Okay.
and it's a common practice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. I have I have another question related to buffers. In looking at some of the images, I saw nice mature trees. I know that's probably 15 to 20 years down the road, perhaps, but I'm just wondering, do you have, will any of the mature trees stay on these, on any of these many acres, or will they all be removed?
Some of them will stay and some of them will be removed. So within all the non-disturbance areas, those are areas that we cannot touch. That's 14 acres. And in the other areas, there would be new vegetation that would be planted. Also, there are requirements for street trees as well. So as the extension of Parkland, Regency Park Drive will be extended, there's requirements by parks to plant trees along the street.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any further questions. I'm just going to check in with the clerk. We should move to the speakers list. However, the meeting is scheduled to end at 8. Do we need to have a motion now to increase the time of the meeting, or do we wait until 8 o'clock?
Chair Steele, I would advise to do that now so that we
Okay.
don't.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clary. Moved by Councillor Clary, seconded by Councillor Morse. Ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has passed. Okay. We'll now move to the speakers list. Members of the public have 5 minutes to address the topic. When I call your name, you may come up to the microphone. Please state your name and the name of the community in which you reside. You can use the timer on the center table to monitor your own speaking time. The clerk will hold up a yellow sign when you have 30 seconds remaining, and when your time is complete, the clerk will hold up a red sign. Please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I'll call 3 times to see if there are any additional speakers. So, for the sign-up sheet, the first 3 speakers are Elaine Godin, Bob Manzer, and Daryl Spur. So I will ask Elaine to come up, please. Just push the button and
It's on. Okay. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Elaine Godin, and you have already received my written community submission. Rather than reread it to you, I wish to take my time to reiterate the need to really see what the Washwell Mill area is as it is, and how it will be in the future. You are the voice of the people, and the people have been saying their biggest concern is the Grand Haven traffic debacle, all of the Wash Mill Lake Drive, and the safety hazards that are a daily way of life. This is our now. This is our future. And until something is done about the existing problems, no development will diffuse the powder keg that is our and your reality. We don't need another traffic study. We need traffic lights at Grand Haven and the Belgravia. This will stop traffic for the buses that have no pullover area at the bottleneck, while allowing left turn lanes out of Grand Haven and the Belgravia. When I have a guest or driver come to my Grand Haven home, my first statement is, be careful, not this is how to find my apartment. It's a constant crapshoot on getting in and out and a matter of life and death, and that's no joke. A set of lights at the Regency punch-through will slow traffic, yes, but how does this help when this development will slow more traffic? I have been advised in writing by planning that the two apartments, 22 and 28 stories, fronting on Washmill, have been cited to be the first build as per the development agreement prior to the construction of Regency Park Drive, punch-through. This will add an easy estimate of over 400 units before there's a signalized light and the Regency extension that will seemingly divert traffic to Lacewood. Please understand that Washmill will remain the thoroughfare of choice to access the Community Health Centre, Access Nova Scotia, the 103, the theatres, and retail services such as Best Buy, HomeSense, and Michaels. And as we know, all roads lead to Costco. For sure, the three-lane bottleneck should be fixed, but in the meantime, before any development goes forward, please attend to setting up the game board for good, safe, and healthy growth. Grand Haven needs signalized lights. The two apartment buildings need signalized lights right away as they're built. This would create another crosswalk for the no man's land at the bus shelter at the hill cresting Washmill near Bentley. All of these areas are death traps. Parents with small children, sometimes with carriages, running across the road, and kids and adults doing the same, because their only other alternative is to go down to Main or back to Grand Haven to access a crosswalk. Please also bear in mind that Washmill Lake Drive is its own weather zone. While it can be balmy in downtown Halifax, up there in probably the windiest spot in HRM, there's fog, snow, and ice. That leads me to my last point. Make the remaining sidewalks and bus shelters happen. If need be, revise the retaining wall at Grand Haven, build a retaining wall next to Moxie's, and do the work. I don't want to keep seeing people, some of them handicapped, fighting to stand up or taking to the street. Thank you for your time, and should you care for a copy of this statement, I have brought copies for the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine, and please leave a copy.
Yeah.
We'll now go to Bob Manzer. Bob. Sorry, am I not speaking loudly? Sorry. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Bob, just push the button.
Good evening. My name is Bob Manzer. I live at 40 Regency Park Drive, also known as the Regency Park condominiums in Clayton Park West. I have several significant concerns with the proposed Regency Links development. I completed the community engagement survey a few years ago, and most of my concerns are reflected in the summary of public engagement contained in the staff report. However, I think it's important to review them with you at this critical juncture. I've also submitted a written comments. This is kind of an abbreviated version because I'll try and stay within the timelines. Most of my concerns arise from the proposed development's radical change in scope. With the increased scale, there is no way that the HRM planning strategy policy of, quote, maintaining the integrity of existing neighborhoods, unquote, would be respected. As the HRM planning staff report itself states, the proposal, quote, represents a change in intensity of use from established suburban neighborhood pattern and introduces a more urban topology with greater height and density, unquote. The proposed development is simply not compatible with the existing neighborhood in which I live. It's mostly comprised of R3 zone, low-rise apartments. It's a mature neighborhood. It's about 25 years old, the Regency Park condos that I live in. Building heights, the proposed building heights by the developer for a suburban neighborhood are excessive, and there are way too many high-rises. Traffic and safety. Let's also consider the significant impact that the proposed extension of Regency Park Drive to Washmill Lake Drive and the addition of 8,500 new residents will have on traffic. Those of us who live at 40 and 10 Regency Park Drive or nearby Tierra Gardens condominiums already experience significant difficulty in accessing Regency Park Drive from the condo driveways, or vice versa, when the nearby Halifax West High School dismisses at 3:30 p.m. Traffic is backed up almost to Thomas Riddell Drive. I can't imagine how problematic this access will be when heavy equipment is added during the construction phase and an additional 8,500 new residents are added, not to mention the increase in traffic from extending Regency Park Drive to Washmill Lake Drive with the people that will be using this instead of Bears Lake. In addition, the very busy, extremely busy intersection of Regency Park, Lacewood, and Parkland Drives, which is also already the site of many accidents, will also become increasingly difficult to traverse. I have personally observed the increase in traffic in the neighborhood in the past several years and have almost been hit in the pedestrian crosswalk on at least 2 occasions. Traffic volumes are definitely increasing in the neighborhood, and the proposed dramatic increase in area residents will only compound this problem. Loss of green space. I too, like many local residents, am also concerned with the loss of green space and the encroachment on the mainland common park. More incredible forest and wetlands in the area would be destroyed or removed, and animal habitat lost. I note that Clayton Park West already recently lost 8 acres of prime urban forest at Park West Park when HRM Regional Council gave that municipal parkland to the province in order to build a junior high school. I note that the completion of the Regency Park Drive extension requires the conversion of a portion of the Halifax mainland commons to public street status to accommodate the planned alignment. I don't support this permanent closure of a portion of increasingly shrinking HRM parkland to do this, nor should you. Construction impact and infrastructure services. I have concerns about the noise and dirt that will be generated over an extended construction period. There is also already a problem with construction debris being strewn around trails by the developers in the area. As a trail monitor at the Halifax Northwest Trails Association, a few years ago I observed a large quantity of construction site debris in the form of styrofoam, plastic, cardboard packaging spread throughout the woods on both sides of the Geyser Hill Trail in the vicinity of the Grand Haven Estates apartment. I also have concern that the mainland common will also be strewn with construction debris. I also have a concern about the incredible strain that will be placed on existing infrastructure. The Canada Games Centre, Keishan Goodman Library, by the addition of 8,500 new residents. Have plans been made or funds identified to expand these community resources? More troubling, perhaps, is the undoubtable strain that this new development will place on the existing schools in the area, which are already buckling under the increased student populations. Has the developer set aside any land for the construction of the school? That was not done in the Rockingham South neighborhood, which contributed to the overcrowding at Park West School, which resulted in the destruction of the forested area there. In addition, how many additional emergency service personnel will HRM have to hire, and how much additional emergency response equipment, such as aerial ladder trucks, will HRM have to buy to service these new developments? Thank you, councillors, for giving me this opportunity to express my concerns.
Thank you, Bob. So we'll now move to Daryl. Yes, please, Daryl.
Thank you for the time. My name is Daryl Spur. I live at up in Grandview section there. I'm sure you know the place well up in that area. You know also how we feel about getting the four-way stop up in that area. 4 stop signs is all we're asking for up there to save people's lives. And we can't get that, and you're talking about building 28-story buildings up there. I want you to think about that. You're talking about a number of 3,860 people that they're talking about putting up there. And that's only if they're singles. If they're husband and wife and kids, we're talking over 1,000, 10,000 people altogether? That'd be about right, wouldn't it? Okay, and you're gonna dump them all up in Washmill, and you think that connecting Regent Drive over onto Washmill is gonna reduce traffic? It's gonna increase it. If you wanna reduce traffic up there, you need to put in bypasses onto the highway, okay, to take cars off of Washmill Lake Road. You don't need to add more traffic onto that road. And as far as driving buses up there, yeah, they don't know about driving buses because they didn't drive one. I drove buses for 6 years, okay? And one of the buses I drove was the 28. And I know exactly how dangerous it is going up there in a bus, okay? There are kids up there being dropped off by school buses just before the intersection that I'm talking about up there, okay? Kids in school buses plus people just past that bus stop being dropped off our regular buses, which kids ride on, okay? There have been major accidents up there already, quite a few of them, okay? So think about that when you start thinking about, we're talking about people's lives up there. They're not your kids, they're ours, because we live up there. And there's over 500, over 1,000 votes up there. So you think about that. And yes, we are pissed, okay? You're talking about putting these buildings up there, these huge buildings, 28 stories. Well, I hate to tell you this, but the growth of our city has grown from 3.9% down to 2.4%. That's 1.5% drop in our population growth. We do not need this anymore. This company has got a big buildings that they're going to be putting on in Micmac Mall and the big area down there that they're going to be building up on, okay? They don't need to have another building up there where all the rents are going to be dropping on the people and other buildings is going to be coming down. And how many of these buildings have been made for people who can afford them? These are for all wealthy people. Another thing you better look at, a 28-story building up there where I live in a building that's only 10 stories. I live on the 4th floor, right? We get 100-mile-an-hour winds going across there, okay? Oh, yeah, they build buildings to handle that nowadays. Sure they do, okay? But do they build buildings that hold furniture and balconies that don't get blown off from 28 stories up and go across traffic and road, hit kids down in there playing in the great playground that they plan on building? And if you happen to notice that the Regency Drive that they're building there is a 4-lane road, okay, which generally means 60 kilometers an hour traffic going up there. The same as it's running up a wash mill right now, right? But putting 4 stop signs up there, you could slow that traffic down enough so that people aren't getting killed, okay? 4 lousy stop signs is all it takes. That's what you have to think about when you're doing that. Here's another thing nobody seems to be mentioning very much. We got 2 huge cell towers up there, or city towers, CBC's on there, CTV's on there, okay? There's ham radios on there. There's all kinds of FM stations on there. Nobody's talking about what's happening to them, okay? And that's land owned by them, corporate companies, okay? So where's that money coming from? You think about it. You got to deal with all these things when you're actually building things, okay? The other thing that you might take a quick note of in all this is they've done a lot of discussion about the areas that they're going to cover, and they're going to build nice playgrounds and stuff like this. Well, those are going to add kids onto those roads or towards those roads, okay? That's much more traffic up there. These are the things that you really got to look at when you're putting a building that big up there. They don't care. They're just trying to make their money. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Daryl. So we have 2 other speakers on the list, and I see one of the speakers is, it looks like Parker, and the last name starts with a W. Okay, who signed up besides Wendy McDonald, who's on her way up? Is there someone else here who signed up? Okay, so please go ahead, Wendy.
I have submitted comments to council, but I wanted to participate here tonight because this is an important aspect of my neighborhood and community. The extension of Regency may be a positive move. However, it can be done with a lower density. I think back to the 2018 development agreement, approved with lots of community input and engagement locally, not here at City Hall. Dean is the 3rd planner on this expanded file. Jillian and Dali were involved earlier. No one has mentioned the height of land, 144 meters. The introduction of 18 to 28 stories on the hill will create a wind effect not known elsewhere in HRM, and others have spoken about that. My friend who lives on the 6th floor at Green Park Close tells me she's often in the fog. Non-disturbance areas includes the wetland, which has no organized use by the residents, adding to the green acreage. So it's perhaps unfair to include that as a positive. I know we do need to save our wetlands, however. Other concerns of mine may not be considered at this stage, including affordability, adequate parking for 3,830 units, plug-ins for e-vehicles, planting of native shrubs and pollinators, and other things. One of the new policies shared by Dean spoke of the emphasis of a mix of housing types. I was not familiar with this policy. I am confused how 18 to 28 stories is a mix. The previous development agreement provided 1,216 units, and now we have 3,830. It's massive growth. I remind council that all the schools mentioned are at capacity with portables in place, and I also believe the medical services described are all at capacity. We see folks lining up on the sidewalk in hopes of seeing medical help. Walkability has not been emphasized in our existing neighborhoods. Too much reliance on vehicles, but that is not what can be changed overnight. We want to increase, as Councillor White mentioned, walkability is so important, not only for cutting down on traffic, but prevention of health issues and so on. The concern about the smaller wetland removals, I'm hoping that the compensation site is something local that we can all enjoy. I know what the province does with that. I too am concerned about the CBC and CTV towers. Have those parties been at the table as Dean described, with so many folks being involved? I believe that these tall buildings may have some effect on tower remission, and some folks don't like to live near towers, so this is a consideration. The traffic study did not consider the high school hours of operation, so that's quite a large gap for some of the traffic accounting. They go from 9:25 to 3:35. The hours that were studied, I believe, were 7, 8, and 9, and perhaps 4 and 5 in the afternoon. So that's a gap in the traffic study report. And I may be confused with what Dean mentioned, but access to the 102 highway would be a left turn down Washmill to Dunbrack and then over to the access, not right on Washmill, because that is an overpass. Thank you for letting me speak today, and I agree with many of the comments and remarks that were shared by others, and thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I will now ask if there's anyone else in the gallery that would like to speak. Go ahead, Jessica Boyd.
Can I go? Okay. My name is Jessica Boyd. I am the chair of the Halifax Northwest Trails Association, and I live on the corner of Lacewood and Parkland Drive. I have been involved in building a series of recreational trails in the Mainland Common Park with the Parks and Recreation and our volunteer members, and we have a plan to build 2 kilometers of recreational trails. We've completed slightly less than 1, and we're doing some every year. We are very excited to have this rhombus shape, undisturbed area as part of the mainland commons, and would be very happy to work with the developers to build a trail through there to connect with our trail system. I just want to say that we would not be happy with an active transportation trail, like a big, wide trail going right through there, connecting to the mainland North Trail. It would, we want a recreational trail because that's what's there now, and we could see a very nice rec trail connecting to the trails that exist. There are plenty of routes to make a bicycle trail a different way along Washmill Lake. I love to ride my bikes, and I could certainly see that. I'd be happy to ride the bike trail along Regency Park Drive and to access the mainland North Trail that way. In any case, I really hope that I can work with Parks and Recreation and the developers on the design of these trails. That's it.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay. Is there anyone else in the gallery that would like to speak? Okay. Is there anyone else in the gallery that would like to speak? Okay. Not hearing any, not seeing anyone else. I will ask our applicant to come forward and respond to some of the comments from the speakers. And you will be given 5 minutes.
I've made some notes here on some of the comments, and if I do miss anything and you want to ask me on any topic, I'll be able to respond as well. I do want to respond to a couple of important things that were raised. They were all important, but there was a couple that I missed talking about in my presentation. CPC has been at the table from day one. They have their own requirements. We had to commission a study by a consultant in Quebec that specializes in radio frequency and interference, and they've established the parameters for us to design accordingly. So this was factored right from day one, and the report is public. The report was submitted to CPC, so they reviewed the report and they were okay with the report and with the findings. Nothing that we are doing will interfere with the signal or has any safety concern. They have very strict guidelines. And I did speak with CPC representative before I came to the meeting this afternoon as well. They called and just followed up on the progress. The other thing that was brought was wind, and wind. The HRM wind requirement and the wind part of the bylaw is part of this development agreement, and we would have to submit when we go to detailed design and these buildings are designed. We will involve them, and we would have to meet the requirements of HRM. If there are any shortcomings through what we propose, then they require modifications to our design that we take into consideration, and we redesign and we submit part of our drawings to the city. So as we apply for these buildings one after the other, the wind studies would be done for each building and collectively for the whole subdivision. Traffic, I do not want to say more about traffic. All I can tell you is from somebody that lives in the area and shops in the area and plays in the area and whose kids went to school in the area. This connection is a very, very positive thing. height, I do want to talk a little bit about height. And I wanted to maybe show you would you be able to see the image that I just put on the screen? So just to give you, height is a good thing. If you look at, if you know the area and you know the existing buildings that are there, the buildings that are at the end of Regency is a 13-story height building with no form whatsoever. It's a concrete wall from level 1 to level 13. The same at the top Mount Royal. These buildings were designed and built at a time where our bylaws were different and our regulations were different. If you look at the building that is next to that 9-story building on the screen.
Excuse me, we can't see your. Yeah, we're not seeing it.
Okay, so
Yes,
sorry. That's okay. All I wanted, well, I'm not sure why you cannot see it.
There.
So it's just to show you how form is different. If you look at that building that's next on the top of Mount Royal, these buildings next to it are 9-story buildings. 9-story buildings with no street wall. The building that is being proposed, yes, it is taller, but it's a third of the volume. And that's how we're able to propose something that's 13.5% coverage. The building coverage on this site is 13.5%. So for us to be able to provide open spaces and natural areas, preserved areas, that's where height helps us. It produces nicer form buildings, and it is able to provide the good stuff, which is the open space and natural open spaces. So times have changed. This could be pushed lower, but it will not yield the good results that you ask us to do. It would not give us the good design, good form, and provide abundance of green open spaces. I think I might have, one more thing. The first speaker talked about the first 2 buildings across from Wash Mill. She was concerned that those would come in first, and before the road infrastructure is in place, the road connection, that's not going to happen. The water for these 2 buildings comes from the other side of Regency. So the piping has to come through the road to service those 2 buildings that are across from Wash Mill. So those 2 buildings will not be built first. Those buildings will be built when Regency is extended. So that concern is not, her concerns are not valid. It's because the road will be extended first. They will not be built in isolation.
Of course, all their access will be to Wash Mill.
Sorry, we're not allowed to have questions from the gallery directed toward the applicant. My apologies.
The access will be to Wash Mill, but it will also be able to connect to Regency Park Drive because that road would be in before those buildings are occupied.
Okay.
My time is up. Thank you.
Okay, your time is up. Thank you. I will now ask for a member of the Community Council to close the public hearing. Thank you, Councillor Clary. Seconded by Councillor Hinch. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising their hand. Contrary minded, nay. The motion has carried and the public hearing is now closed. I will now ask staff if they wish to respond to any points raised by the speakers. Okay. Dean, are you coming up?
Just to come up to say that I'm here if there's any, I think Cesar covered most of the responses that I was going to say, so if there are any additional questions from council, I'm here to.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. My question, one resident brought up EV charging. If somebody could speak to that, going out 20 years, it'd be great to be able to charge EVs here.
Through your chair to the council, I can advise that HRM doesn't have the ability to require EV chargers, so I'll defer that to the applicant.
Yeah. You can't answer? Okay. Okay. Okay.
So I'm going to ask Vice Chair Hinch to come up while I move to her chair to put the motion on the floor.
Okay, so what is the wish of the committee? What are the wishes?
I'd like to put the motion on the floor. I move that Halifax and West Community Council, 1, approve the proposed development agreements, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in attachments A and B of the staff report dated February 23, 2026, and 2, require the agreements be signed by the property owner within 240 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, this approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at an end.
Seconded by Council Clary.
Thank you. I'll go ahead.
Wish to speak? Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Clary, and thank you, staff, for the presentations and for the applicant and to the applicant. I have a few questions, but I'll just begin with a few initial comments. I live very close to this area as well. And I know people talked about proximity and usage. I live close to Parkland Drive, and I moved there when Parkland Drive went as far as Belcher's Marsh. And you couldn't, I was locked in. I couldn't get to Kearney Lake Road. I couldn't travel to other parts of Clayton Park. So I know how it feels when you're not connected to parts of your natural community. And one thing that the Regency Park Drive extension will do is provide those connections. So I'm looking upon this quite favorably because of these community connections. It will open up significant access to the Canada Games Centre, to the soccer facility, to the Keshen Goodman Library, and many, many things. The other thing that I experience on Saturdays is if I want to get on Lacewood Drive and travel on Lacewood, well, you're stopped, and you're stopped for quite a long time. So I do have the option of driving up Willett through Council Morse's district and then going up Washmill Lake Drive now. So it will facilitate more access on Washmill Lake Drive. One thing I want to address, and this was covered in many of the comments and letters that we received around this development, was the significant traffic concerns that are experienced by residents of Grand Haven Boulevard and the Belgravia. It's very difficult to enter and exit for these for these 400 units around 400 units on Grand Haven Boulevard and around 200 in the Belgravia. I think about 800 residents in total. I know since I've been a councillor, we've tried to put in some measures, putting some traffic, some turning lanes and other things. Consideration still underway for lowering the speed there. One of the things that's also favorable for this development is additional trails access off Regency Park and more access to Geezer Hill trails. These are well-used trails, and thank you to the volunteer people that manage the Halifax Northwest Trails Association and the work they do. I'd like to see more members of our community be able to access this wonderful recreational area. One of the concerns I had was around stormwater management, and I know that this has been a concern for the trails team, but I understand this will be addressed in later stages of the planning. So with that, I'll stop here and I will come back with some further comments.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Councillor Hinch. I have to say, when this first came forward, I had a lot of concerns about the increase in density that was proposed. And I did spend a fair bit of time talking with staff in a few different departments about the proposal and the increase in units. I feel like a lot of things have been taken into consideration. And I heard more this evening that, I feel that when you're looking at a good mix of apartment types and sizes, that's very positive. The connections to the mainland common, I think, are very thoughtful. The building of the road at the developer's expense, I think, is a good situation. We're already at capacity at the Canada Game Centre. We're already, the library is the second busiest in HRM after Central. The schools are really crowded. But we do have a school planned for the area, an elementary or a junior high school planned for the area. And the build out is over 20 years. So I think we will be able to adapt, and we will have to adapt because there are other plans for the area as well. There are some benefits of the density that's proposed in that it can support commercial and stores nearby. I think it can be built as a walkable place, and I hope it will be. And the increased density can support better transit connections for the area. It's kind of mutual. The more people you have, the better you can support transit, and the better the transit, the more people we can support. So overall, I have some concerns about the details, but we're not here to talk about the details tonight. So I guess as this evolves and develops, we will know more about it. But overall, I think I've decided that I'm supporting it, and hope that we can learn more as we go and adapt as we go with this. So, thank you.
Councillor Steele, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just want to finish the thought that I don't think I completed when I discussed the Grand Haven Boulevard and Washman Lake Drive, in that what I've been advised by our traffic team is that when the lights are placed at Regency and Washman Lake Drive, that should provide some time and space for entering and exiting from Grand Haven Boulevard and from the Belgravia. So I'm I've been advised that this will help with that traffic situation. It's not the traffic lights that I know residents would like, but it's supposed to address the issue. The other thing I want to mention and be very clear about this is there are a number of areas that there's development being considered that don't already have sewer and water and transit. So I prefer to see increased population, increased density in an area like this where we already have multi-unit residential buildings. I'm thinking about the Blue Mountain Birch Cove Lakes area, for example. I know that's now a special planning area, but I see the development in this area as much more preferential. It's infill housing. We already have a lot of the infrastructure in place. I see this as perhaps less costly for the city to serve in the long run as well. And those are things, as after our rigorous budget process, we need to think about this. So while it has greater density than perhaps any of us would like, I understand that this helps the economics make sense, this greater density, and it also contributes to HRM being able to provide transit, improved transit, which we need all over the city and in this area as well. So for those reasons, I will be voting to support, and I ask my council colleagues to do the same.
So we have no more speakers on the list. What is the question is called? All for the approval of the proposed development? Contrary minds? None? Motion approved. Did I do that right? Yeah, you did. You were fantastic.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hinch. So we'll move along. And I'll ask the clerk if any correspondence has been received concerning petitions, delegations.
Chair Steele, correspondence was received and circulated for items 10.1.1 and 10.1.2, and the clerk's office did not receive any petitions for this meeting.
Okay. And do any committee members have petitions to submit this evening? No, not seeing any. Okay, next we'll have the public participation section of the meeting. Speakers can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I'll call 3 times to ask if there are any additional speakers. And speakers can participate in person, or if you're pre-registered by the deadline, you have the option to participate using Zoom. As a reminder to those watching, in order to have signed up as a Zoom speaker, the deadline was 4:30 p.m. the business day prior to the meeting. However, there's no deadline to speak in person as long as you are present in the chamber. We have 1 speaker registered and nobody has chosen to use Zoom today. So I will ask Stephen Sikar to come forward, please. And thank you for your patience, Stephen. And you will have 5 minutes once you get set up. Thank you. This is a test.
It's not a car door lock, I swear. Right? Okay, good evening, Chair and members of the committee, my name is Stephen Secord, and I'm from Hatchet Lake, District 13. In my 20-year military career, I've learned that in the wrong environment, even the best personnel will fail. Without the right tools, the mission is simply impossible. Halifax has set ambitious objectives through the 2026-2030 Strategic Plan, Halifax 2050, and the Just Food Action Plan. However, a clear gap exists between these paper goals and the actual practice. We are asking our residents to build a resilient city, yet our current backyard chicken bylaws neither support the environment nor provide the tools necessary for success. I am here to propose the Universal Food Security Standard Framework. This is the administrative bridge required to align the city with its own stated goals. Our current organic waste collection model is a centralized, logistics-heavy liability. We are currently paying to haul wet waste, which is 80% water, over long distances via diesel fleets. This is the most inefficient way to manage nutrients and directly contradicts our Halifax emissions targets. Currently, distribution of hen products is permitted in the regional center, but strictly prohibited in suburban and rural zones like Hatchet Lake, where I live. This geographic inequality essentially mandates food waste by making it illegal to recycle surplus protein back to neighbors. Furthermore, by prohibiting on-site chick rearing, we force residents into a dependency on tenuous, cumbersome industrial supply chains. We have a plan for food security, yet we maintain bylaws that prevent a closed-loop system. The solution, a circular economy model designed to redirect organic residuals from the waste stream into high-quality protein production. We stop viewing backyard food production as a hobby and start viewing it as a decentralized community utility. My model, colorfully titled Slops Giving, utilizes decentralized farm stewardship nodes. Under this system, residents divert food scraps to a local node before they enter the municipal collection system. A single resident manages the system for a group of local households, ensuring high standards of care and efficiency. These nodes track and verify waste diversion metrics for municipal reporting. We reclassify kitchen scraps as organic feedstock, and then we use the avian engine to convert the feedstock into protein and fertilizer at the source. This shifts the focus to the flock's health and the quality of the site's infrastructure. The model turns our strategic literature into tangible neighborhood action. It creates a neighborhood dividend where families collaborate to produce food, fostering the social fabric at a grassroots level. This is Halifax 2050 in motion. It stops methane at the source and eliminates waste miles by keeping resources within the community. It provides a business in a box for our local youth, offering roles in logistics and animal stewardship. It moves climate education out of the classroom and into the backyard. I am asking this council to move from theory to practice. I request an engagement in direct dialogue outside this public forum to execute the strategy. We do not need further studies to confirm that accessible protein, healthy soil, and localized waste diversion are beneficial for Halifax. What we need is a field-tested pilot program to demonstrate how a capable standard can be professionally managed, audited, and scaled across the region. I have spent 20 years in the service of this country, and I have seen that true resilience is never built on administrative barriers. It is built on the freedom of citizens to be good stewards of their own land. Let us move beyond the constraints of obsolete models and empower our residents to secure their own future. Our food security should be determined by our character and our capability, not by our postal codes. One region, one standard, a resilient future for all. Thank you very much. Any?
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Clary.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Stephen, for the information, which I'm stuck on the graphic. I haven't gotten to the text yet. In a nutshell, can you explain? So I'm in the urban core. We actually allow farming, and I think, in some ways, oddly, have actually less restrictive egg issues than maybe the suburbs do. But the majority of council is suburban. So in a nutshell, explain to me what the barrier is. Is it the number of chickens? Is it, because I'm thinking in my head, like, why can't this be done? Why can't people just do what I mean, if I have chickens, I could have chickens, I could give them my scraps. So what's the barrier?
That's a great question.
Oh, microphone. There you go.
Oh, I'm good. So basically the barrier is the bylaws currently.
Which specific clauses or which metrics or which?
Okay, yeah. So in what I just said there is issues with the city center is able to do whatever, basically. All the bylaws are less restricted than the city, where less chickens would probably be reared or raised. Well, in the suburban and rural zones, it is extremely restricted. It keeps me from even receiving scraps from my neighbor or giving them eggs.
Sorry, what's the barrier to receiving scraps? Like, you can't just go, like, I can borrow sugar from my neighbor.
Sure.
You can't go get their food scraps?
I mean, that's what the bylaw says. Like,
I'd have to read that clause in the bylaw. I'm not sure it's that restrictive. So if I peel my potatoes, I can't give that to my neighbor.
Well, you can't give them potato peels.
I don't raise chickens, so this is all new territory.
So basically, the bylaws are less restricted in the regional zone, meaning in the suburban and rural zones, we're not allowed to raise chickens.
I thought, I'll have to go back and review it. I thought it was allowed, I think there were numbers and restrictions.
Well, right now they go by a number, an arbitrary number. And inside of the bylaws, they actually explicitly say that there are square footage regulations, but they don't actually enforce that inside of the bylaw. What I would like to do is move from a compliance model to a conservation model. I would like to have the city supporting people that want to produce food for their neighborhood. But right now, I'm not allowed to do a lot of stuff. They don't. I think it's basically just 6 chickens, 10 chickens in my area. That's okay, but there could be a lot better results happening. Currently, I'm receiving some neighborhood scraps from people, and I'm feeding my chickens, and I'm following the weight and the distribution to how many chickens per how much weight I provide. But right now, yeah, I can't. It's in the bylaws that these two regions, the suburban and the rural, are not allowed to produce products for other people in the neighborhood.
Right.
It's
Okay,
very
I got you.
explicit in there.
Yeah. You know what? We'll chat offline. I'd like to help you out with this. I love chickens. I love eggs. My wife, I tried to get them. She wouldn't let me have them. But we'll see what we can do.
I'm sorry. I would just like to mention, I would like to turn this into an education program too. I do have a small farm and I have a small flock, and I do educate the kids in the neighborhood, and I like to invest my time in animal husbandry and community resilience.
Excellent. Well, we'll get together. We'll hook you up with John Wimberly and some other folks who raise chickens here in the city. And as long as your neighbors don't complain, sometimes they'll let you have more.
Information at the different council meeting. And
Where
I did,
else have you presented?
Last month, at the last month meeting, I put forward 7 different changes to the bylaws.
Okay. So another committee already has that?
Yes.
This committee? Was I here for that one? I don't remember that one.
I don't know where I am right now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Clary. Councillor Morse. Oh, Stephen, you have another question.
You're at Halifax and West Community Council. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just, from your experience, what does it take to have a viable, operation with chickens? If we're not allowing enough chickens to make for a viable operation, what do you think would be a better threshold or a better number?
Okay, so this decentralized model, it works on a scale. So if you have 4 chickens, the reason you have 4 chickens is because you have that amount of space, because you have to work with the chicken's health. I take chicken's health at priority, infrastructure, and then production. So if you say you have the space for 10 chickens, awesome. You have the correct space, put 10 chickens in there. If you have a space for 6 chickens, then I have in the pamphlet there or whatever, there's like a scaling option. So if you have 20 chickens, you service 9 homes, and it's based on the source material of the HRM that's produced on the waste and the waste report that recently came out maybe last year, and it details how much food each family produces. And then I calculated, because I know how much isn't provided to chickens, because you have to take about 30% off because you don't feed them potato scraps and stuff like that. So about 70% off that, and then you know how many families you'll have to petition or to support that flock. So basically each node would require the right amount of families to support the size of flock. But it does scale based on how many chickens you have and the right amount of space.
Okay, thank you. I think I was a part of the council that approved this originally last time around, and we were looking at the size of the yard, in the typical suburban yard, and how many chickens could be supported in a healthy way with that size yard without disturbing the neighbors too much. So those were some of the things that we were thinking about. Maybe there's more we could consider. So thank you.
I added a frequently asked questions in the pamphlet there. Yeah, as detailed as it could possibly be, but yeah, I understand that there is concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Not seeing any other questions. Thank you. So we're now. I can't remember. Are there any additional speakers? No additional speakers. Okay. Are there any members of the gallery that would like to speak? That's number 2. Are there any members of the gallery that would like to speak? Okay. Moving on along, we don't have any information items brought forward. We don't have any reports, motions in camera. Or added items. Do any councillors have notices of motion? Okay. The date of the next meeting is May 19, 2026. Could I have a call, someone move to adjourn, please? Okay. I think I heard Councillor Clary first. Thank you, Councillor Clary. And the meeting is adjourning at 8:57. Thank you, everyone.